Hi guys, my name is LithembaEHS and welcome to LithembaEHS. So today's video is a follow-up to my How to EHS newsletter number 5, which spoke to how I conduct my risk assessments using the prepared method, which is the 5x5 methodology. So as you'll see here on my screen, I'm presenting the basic template to you. So we begin by assigning a reference to each of the results that you're going to be assessing. Then the work area is where the actual work is going to be conducted. So within this template example I'm sharing with you as related to working at heights, virtual surfaces being surfaces that people work on top of where there's a risk of them falling straight through. So the activity that we're looking at is work above a suspended ceiling, above our production floor, work on top of the factory roof, maintenance workshop roof, and the warehouse roof. So then the next step, which are the departments conducting the work, which is important also for you to allocate that so that you understand the entire scope of the activity. So you've got your in-house maintenance artisans and you've got contractors, and then going through to your risk assessment team. As we know, risk assessments should ideally not be conducted by EHS alone, otherwise it ends up being a desktop exercise, or at having the correct inputs and understanding of all of the risks associated with that particular task. So you've got your EHS representative, you've then got your maintenance manager, which is important, and then you've got your maintenance artisans, the people that will actually be conducting the work and can give you an in-depth understanding as to how they actually go about doing this particular task. The next step is your actual activity conducted. So the three that we're looking at is the maintenance artisans or contractors repairing utilities, that being within your suspended ceiling. That can be things like your steam lines or electrical lines or fans that run in there. And then the next one would be repairing or installation of solar panels. Then thirdly, painting and repairing of the roof. We then need to determine whether this is a routine, non-routine, or an emergency activity. Then as we get into the nitty-gritty is where we then this description of the various hazards associated with these tasks, right? So as you'll see here, we've got slippery surfaces, that being on the roof. There might be a puddle of water, sun glare. When your maintenance artisans or the contractor works on the roof, the sun might reflect into their eyes and cause a bit of glare. Traveling over and working on near fragile surfaces, as we mentioned, possibility of individuals falling through. And then we get to the most important, which is determining your probability and severity. Multiply those two and they will give you your risk rating. So before we actually go into doing the calculation, let me just throw to the risk assessment matrix to give you a bit more clarity. Again, you can go back to the How to EHS newsletter number 5, where I give a few details as to how this matrix works. So we initially then assign probability, which can also be looked at as the likelihood, right? So you would rate the hazard from 1, which is insignificant, and then all the way up to 5, which is extreme. Severity also the same, 1 being insignificant, and then 5 being extreme. And then your final risk rating will be the multiplication of those two. As you can see here, in the high end, you've got 25. Low end, you've got insignificant, which is a 1. Then just to pop through, also to explain the colors, but you can then go through this. I'll just look at extreme again. So extreme, anything that is equal to or above 20. So the implications, their work should not be started or continued until the risk has been reduced. If it is not possible to reduce risk, even with unlimited resources, work has to remain prohibited. 1, which is equal to or less than 1, but of course we can't get a rating of less than 1. Presenting very little risk to the environment or to the health and safety of people, no further risk control measures needed. But as I said, you guys, I'll be sharing this template on LinkedIn, so you can then go through that to your heart's content. So the initial assessment we'll be doing is where there are no current controls in place. So the guys go up the cat ladder, they work on the roof, no lanyards, no training, no medical surveillance, no PPE in place, and no safe work procedures in place. So the risk probability of 5 and severity of 5, because in this case, worst case scenario, you fall off the roof or you fall through the suspended ceiling, it's a fatality. Of course, risk rating is 25. Then we then conduct the same process, but then this time we do the assessment being cognizant of the current control measures that are in place. So what we're saying is the current controls that we have in place, so employees or contractors are required to wear body harness and a double leg fall arrest lanyards. So previously we said probability was a 5, but now we've then reduced probability to a 4. We've reduced it to a 4. Severity stays the same because the worst case scenario is a fatality again. So we've somewhat reduced the score, but it's still within the unacceptable tolerance. So it's still 20. What we then do is, this is now all of the controls, all right? This is then the third and the last section where we then rate the same activity and risks, but then putting in all of the controls that are reasonably practicable. So as you can see that we mentioned removal of hazards, implement and adhere to general controls and people requirements that will be in SOP. Having in place a personal fall protection where you install fall arrest anchors, you've got temporary safety lifelines, there's personal fall protection equipment, and safe working procedures. So with all of that in place, we then, the last time, assess the same activities. So now, as you can see, we went from a 5 to a 4, and now we are assigning a rating of 1 for probability. Severity again, if all of this fails, what is the worst case scenario? Still, that being a fatality. So the multiplication of those two then gives us a 5, which has significantly brought down the risks. Right. So also important is to assign actions, because it's no point saying we'll be doing all of this, implementing all of those control measures, but we are not actually assigning people to conclude or complete those activities. So we then assigned EHS, and then we also assigned the maintenance manager. And then it's also important to assign due date, because then otherwise what is the point? You're spending or you're using all of these resources, you've got an action plan in place, but there's no due date. Then you'll actually the action plans. As we said here, we'll apply for CAPEX to install anchor points, train all maintenance artisans on basic working at heights and job-specific working at heights safety precautions. Thirdly, conduct annual medical surveillance for maintenance artisans that conduct working at heights. So as I mentioned, this is just a template, it's not a real scenario, but I think this should give you a basic understanding of how to use the 5x5 methodology. Guys, please let me know in the comment section how you go about conducting your 5x5 methodology, or if there's anything you would add or remove from the template that I just shared with you. Thank you guys, thanks for joining, and stay safe. Enkosi.